Nobody's born incredible. People who do incredible things simply took the right steps.
This is our journey. This is the hunt for incredible.
In this episode, we continue our conversation with Dylan Wright into a part 3. Now, we were recording part 2 on a rooftop in Italy and my laptop died, so it ended up cutting part 2 short. And once we started back up recording part 2, we realized that the continued part 2 conversation really deserved to be its own part. So we decided to just spin it off as a part 3. So in this episode, Dylan dives into how he would get into band management, identify an artist, and scale them from 0 to 100 with no money and no connections, really starting from ground zero. It's a super cool episode because he talks about lessons that can be applied across multiple facets in business, from identifying talent to building out a team to building out a following and bringing attention to the business. And so a lot of really exciting stuff. All right, without further ado, here's my part 3 conversation with Dylan Wright. We are continuing the part 2 of the episode. Part 1, we were recording on a rooftop in beautiful Sorrento, Italy, and we were not plugged in to power. So we eventually powered down, lost the continued recording, of course. And now we're picking it back up. But regardless, it was a great experience. We got all the things that we needed to. And now we're here to deliver more. So Dylan, let's kick things off from the beginning. What is your story? I'm just kidding. All right, let's kick things off from, if someone's trying to get into music, interested in being a band manager, what would those initial steps into the space look like?
I mean, there are varied routes that you can take. I think when I'm talking to any other aspiring manager or industry professional that wants to break in, I mean, you could go to school for this. We have a lot of Belmont kids that come in and intern at Make Way, Deep Roots, and that's one avenue, right? That's a pretty obvious avenue, is go to music school, get a degree in music business, or if you're a player, you can get a degree in performance, and you can intern at various companies around Nashville, get to know people that way. That's a great avenue. Usually leads to opportunities as long as you work hard and you treat people right. Then people in this town will talk and they will say, hey, this is a hungry young individual that really wants to get in. You should give him an opportunity. I took a less traditional route. I started as an artist myself, and from there, got into tour management. And so I was doing, a lot of the same things for myself as an artist. I was booking, I was advancing the show like a tour manager would. I was a merchandise manager. I was doing all the aspects like everybody who does, or everybody who tries to be an artist. We all do all the jobs in the beginning. And that's a fantastic way to learn. But if you're not musically inclined, I would suggest hopping on the road with somebody. Touring still runs this industry, in my opinion. If you want to be a musician and you want to have a living doing that, then you go on the road and you go on tour. Social media has obviously changed this. We've got people who make a lot of their money off of YouTube performances or social media, but I still think touring drives the industry at a large scale. So I recommend go out on the road, sell merch for somebody, tour manage someone, try any way you can to get involved with people who are doing what you want to do. We've got a few interns here that I just spoke with earlier today, and one of them came from an instance like that where he did some merchandise management and tour management before, and he's in school finishing up, just moved to Nashville, and now he is interning. And I love that. I love that grit and tenacity where he's like, man, I was in it. And then a lot of people could see that as a step backwards, right? Where I was getting paid to do this, and now I'm just going to intern. And it's like, you can't always just think of how much am I getting paid. You've got to think of what is this going to look like for me 5 years from now? And he was able to see, if I can get in with this management company and learn from them and be around it and be in it, that's going to be more beneficial than me just taking a job at a bar downtown, waiting tables. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And he may do that on the side. I don't know, but he's being very thoughtful and mindful about who is he surrounding himself with. And I think if I was to distill it down, I'd say if you want to do it, then surround yourself with the people who are doing it any way possible.
What does that look like, surrounding yourself with people who are doing it? So you mentioned diving in, maybe tour managing and things like that. Is there anywhere that somebody can go where there's a high concentration of band managers or high caliber managers that they could surround themselves with? Or is it, you'd recommend like a more organic approach where you just get in the industry and you meet a bunch of people and then you slowly get closer to the people who are at that level you're trying to get to?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So obviously, thinking regionally, where do you go? I mean, New York, LA, Nashville, these are known as the music cities. So I tell people if you're in country music, and there is more than country in Nashville, so don't be deterred by like this is country music capital. There's rock and jazz and blues. There's everything happening here. But if you want to be the best, you got to be around the best. And I would say Nashville's music city for a reason. You could try LA and New York as well, depending on what type of music you want to get into. Those are the three major ones. But there is an industry happening. There's a whole music industry happening in Texas right now. So you could move to Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin. You could go there as well and find people to be around. Okay, so basically speaking, let's say you're a young manager and you're like, man, I have sold merchandise for a buddy of mine, but I really want to take the next step. And I love this. I want to learn more about the music industry and how to be a manager. What should I do? So I would tell you to go out to every show that you can find, whether it's, at various venues around Nashville, Basement East, or you start going to the Ryman, or you go, I would recommend like Exit In, Basement East, Marathon Music Works. You have easier access to the teams and the artists at these smaller venues. And that's who you want to start with too, a developing act. Go to songwriter rounds, go to all of the events in town that you can, and then introduce yourself afterward. Typically here in Nashville, it's a very accessible city. So at the end of a songwriter round, if you liked someone and you think, man, I love their voice, I love their songs, you have access to them immediately after the show. Walk up and say, hi, I'm a young aspiring manager here in town. I really loved your music. I would love to see if there's any way that I could help. I'm willing to do anything that's needed, for everything to selling your merchandise for you, to pushing cases, loading in, loading out for you. And I'm cheap because I'm just trying to get into it. That's what I would suggest. Um, that's one avenue and the easiest way, because I think the experience on the road and the experience of building an artist from the ground up is super beneficial. So find yourself a job in town that's flexible. Like I mentioned earlier, you could wait tables if you wanted to. You could work at Top Golf. Like there's loads of places. Try to get a Monday through Thursday job during the day that's flexible. Leave Friday, Saturday, Sunday open so that you can travel with this artist that you find and go out on the road with them, and you just work. Neither of you will be making money in the beginning, but you're going to get you're going to get the experience that's necessary for you to understand what it takes for an artist to start at zero. And then the next thing would be go and search that artist's socials. So say you're up at Exit In and there are 50 people in there, but this person has the voice and the songs and the look. And I love their music, because you've got to be a fan. You've got to be passionate as well. And you say, okay, I'm going to look up, John Doe and see what his social media looks like. Does he have a website? What could be cleaned up? And that's typically when I sit down with an artist, I just ask them, what do you need? What are your pain points? What do you need help with? Ask them what their goals are. Where are you trying to take your career? Because some people are like, I just want to play the Grand Ole Opry. And some people say, I want to play arenas. I want to play football stadiums. I want to be an international star. Not every artist gets into it for that. Some just want to, sell out their hometown and write songs for a living. Great. You got to know where the artist starts, find their pain points, and figure out if you're the right person to solve those pain points. Somebody says, yeah, I've never thought about it. I didn't know you needed a website. Build them a website. There are a ton of entry level website, platforms that you can just design, Squarespace, whatever, Wix.com. You can, for very cheap, build someone a simple website that immediately elevates their baseline and start attacking the basics.
We've talked about this
So,
previously, and it even came up in the episode with Jason Albers around how music is unique in that it's both a product and a service. What do you look for in your artists when you are prospecting and you're going to take one on, understanding that they are effectively the factory of this music production and integral to that aspect of the business?
so what am I looking for in an artist to sign them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Again, I mean, potential is obvious, but outside of the obvious talent, do you have the talent? I look more into who they are as a person. Do they align with things that I align with? Is this someone that I'm going to want to talk to every single day? Because as a manager, you have to talk to your artist all the time. And it might not be every single day, but in the beginning, it's every other day, twice a week, 3 times a week. You've got to stay on top of what do you need? What's your calendar look like as you start to build out the rest of the team. It's just a lot of conversation. So you got to make sure you get along with the person, right? You can't sign someone that you have nothing in common with, that you don't want to talk to. So you make sure, are you a good person? And typically I would take quite a few meetings in the beginning and start to learn this person, the ins and outs of them. What's their work ethic like? I don't want to outwork anybody, right? If you're an aspiring artist, you've got to work harder than every single person around you, and then try to find people who are going to challenge you to work harder, right? They're going to try to level you up by outworking you. And that's what I have a really good, working relationship with, and my team does as well. My day-to-days bust their tail, and then my artists have to match that and beat it, because no one's going to care about your career more than you do. In management, we're second. We care, almost as much as your mom cares. Like, we care. We take them on as family, and we know what your goals are, what your dreams are, and you get to know the person inside and out. What are you thinking? What are the nuanced, things that you do in your everyday life? So that's one. Character, who are you? Talent, obviously. And then again, I'm more concerned with what their goals are than what mine are for them. So it has to be an artist that has something to say. If you don't know what you want to say, or you don't know who you are, or what type of music you want to sing, or any of that, if you don't have that part together, then you don't need management. You need to figure out who you are and what you have to say first. So there are definitely levels to it. At this point, you got to be mindful of, you don't just sign someone because they're really, really good. Maybe they don't need a manager yet. Maybe they just need somebody that they can call once a month and ask advice. Hey, I had this publisher reach out to me and they offered me this. What do you think? And then I would go down the list of questions about, why would that deal matter for them? Is it a good deal? What are some other opportunities that they could look towards? Why is it important to wait for the right moment? And then once they get to a place where essentially they can no longer take care of all of the things that it takes to be an artist, then they start to build that team out. And then that's where a manager comes in and says, all right, you're playing enough shows now and writing enough songs that you can't handle your calendar anymore. We'll bring a team in. Or, I really need a booking agent. I just don't know where to start. Well, that's something that's our job in management, is to know the other people in the industry. That's what we do. And so I would say, okay, you need a booking agent, you want a publishing deal so that you can make some money and stop waiting tables, right? Because that's another thing. A lot of people in town will get a side job to fund their lives. And then if you can get them a publishing deal where they're making, $2,000 to $3,000 a month, well, then that covers their baseline of bills, and that allows them the freedom to write their songs, create their music, and then go out on the road. But that's also another thing. It's very, very hard, because you got to struggle and get 100+ songs under your belt written, completed before you're even at a level of a publishing deal. So it's not just something that you can move to Nashville and be like, I got 5 songs, I want a publishing deal. And it's like, nope, you're going to have to grind for a couple years, write every single day when you're tired. It's funny when I talk to family back home about the industry and being a musician, there's this odd, I think the internet's helped with this, but there's this odd, misconception of musicians that they've just got it made. Oh, well, it must be nice to be famous and have all this money and you've just got it made. There's 24/7. There's no stopping. There's absolutely no stop. It's not a clock in at 8, clock out at 5. I mean, this is like you go to work 8 to 5 and then you come home and you work harder on your passion until 2 o'clock in the morning. And then you sleep for 4 to 6 hours and then you get up and do it all again. And then the weekend comes and you don't just kick back in a lawn chair and have a good time with your buddies. No, you're on the road. Now you're packing up all your gear into your van and you're hitting the road and driving 8 hours to the first show. And then you're loading in and then you're putting your heart out on the line for a crowd of 50 people and just trying to win them over and say, this is what I have to say. This is everything my heart has to say, which people don't understand how much energy that takes. And then at the end of it, you get to meet those 50 people, shake their hands. If you're lucky, they want you to sign something and then say, please go listen to my music, and then you go to the hotel, or if you're lucky, you've got a Sprinter van, right? And then you go to the hotel and you sleep for 4 hours because guess what? You got to get up at 5 a.m. to drive another 6 hours to the next gig. It is not a glamorous life. It's very tough. And in the beginning, guess who's going to be right beside that artist who has to do all that? The manager. The manager not only has to do all that, but has to make sure the artist wakes up at 5 a.m. and gets in the van. And then you drive them and you set up their merch and set up their stage and make sure that they have energy and like, okay, man, hey, is there anything I can get for you? I need a 5-hour energy. All right, cool. I'm going to run down the block, literally sprint down the block, grab the 5-hour, come back, make sure you're on stage on time and do all this. And it's a grind.
That's something that I've always appreciated about the music industry is the amount of grind that's needed to put in to succeed and the appreciation of the process to get there. Artists really have to love the process to succeed. You can't just want to be a famous musician and not be that into music. Like you need to love the process so much that you pour yourself out onto the process regularly enough, despite the challenges often enough, consistently enough, at the caliber needed in order to even stand a chance to succeed. Like people who don't love the process and don't love it enough to be willing to go through the hell that you face won't stand a chance.
Yeah. And I love that whole overnight success thing. That does not exist. These people have put in so many hours behind the scenes that you don't get to see. And no one will ever get to see those countless hours and sleepless nights. And, it's funny, that blood, sweat, and tears thing. People don't understand that sometimes an artist will have to go so hard and so long that their throat will start bleeding. I mean, that's happened to me in the past where I found out later I had strep throat, had no idea. I was singing a 4-hour show, but because, 50 of my friends and 200 other people in that local town came out, I'm not just going to bow out halfway through. Again, this is your shot, man. When you get your shot, you take your shot. I'm not advising anybody sing while they're sick. It's okay, but you got to have a grit. You've got to want it more than the next guy, because I'm telling you right now, there is somebody else that will step in and take that opportunity because they're grinding just as hard as you are, and they want it. And it's not most of the time in Nashville is really great about this. Everybody's propping each other up, and it's a very kind city for that, in my experience, right? If you're kind to people, people will be kind back. And if you care and give, people will give back. And that's how it goes, right? You got to care about people. But at the end of the day, we're all on a grind. And it is a long road. Before we move on from how hard it is, when I was probably 19, 20 years old, I had just started singing, like doing karaoke in my hometown, which is funny to look back on. And I went out to an Emerson Drive concert in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And I had the opportunity after the show, they sat at the merch table. The whole band came out and just sat down and let a line of people come and meet them. And you got to meet everybody in the band. And I got to the lead singer, who I was, a big fan of, and thought, okay, this is my moment. I'm going to ask him. I'm going to get all the secrets. I'm young. I don't know. I'm like, okay, cool. Hey, I'm an aspiring artist. I just wanted to know what advice you have for me or what route I should take. And he literally looked me dead in the eyes and said, quit. He's like, don't do it. In his other, everybody at the table, there's like five other guys in the band. They all stop their conversations and just start laughing because they heard it. And he said, I'm not joking, but I am joking. He said, I want you to hear my words and take me very seriously. I'm telling you to quit. And you know how you're going to know if you're going to make it? If you don't quit, then you might have a chance. But I'm telling you right now, you should probably quit. And that just stuck with me. And because here's a guy that I was, in a sense, idolizing, thinking this is the guy that I want to be, right? One of those singers, or one of many at the time that I was a fan of. And he's telling me to just quit now. I was like, oh, thank God I'm too stubborn. I was like, I'm not quitting. I'll show you. And but that's the attitude you got to have. And he wasn't wrong. If you don't want this more than anything else in the world, if you can see yourself doing anything else, then you probably should go a different route because it's just going to be heartache for you. It's going to be a lot of not making money, not, living paycheck to paycheck. Even when you're on a budget, you can be as responsible as you want to be. You will live paycheck to paycheck and grind it out for 10 plus years, unless you're extremely fortunate and lucky and you get a break at like 5 years. But even then, you want those 10 years so you can learn all the mistakes before the success comes. Because when the success comes is when the hard part happens, right? It's who is it? Gid, you'll know the reference in the Bible. Is it Isaac who has to work 7 years to
Oh, Jacob.
to Jacob? So Jacob had to work 7 years to win over his wife with the father, and then the father says, "Joke's on you. Here's the next 7 years." Right? That's the music industry. You work, 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 work until you finally made it, and guess what? You got to do it all over again. So I don't know what other advice to give outside of buckle up. Whether you want to be on the business side or on the artist side, buckle up and enjoy the process, which is common in most industries where you're trying to do something exceptional. This can cross over to so many different areas, but music's hard. It's very hard.
I love the way you phrased it. If you can see yourself doing anything else, then do not do it. I can relate to that so deeply because I've always viewed myself as an artist building businesses and letting the business be my art. And I cannot see myself doing anything else. And that's what has been obsessively driving me, is this idea of I will work 18 hours a day and love every second of it. And people say that I'm a workaholic and that I need to relax. And oftentimes I do. So I will give credit where it's due. But at the same time, there are moments when I'm having so much fun building and creating that I view it as like if I was a musician and I was playing guitar all day and you saw me playing guitar until like the wee hours of the night, you wouldn't say, oh my gosh, he's such a workaholic. You'd say, look at him loving his craft. He loves music so much. He literally is incapable of putting the guitar down. That's how passionately in love with his craft he is. And I view business the same way around. It's not even like a thing that I am pushing into so much as a thing that is sucking me in, that I have no control over. It's just that's where I find that peace and happiness and balance in life, and being fulfilled with my craft and with the process is just falling in love with that grind.
Yeah, I love that we're talking about this because there are so many people on social media today that are talking about this, but I don't think they give enough context because everything's in sound bites now, right? Gary Vaynerchuk's a big one for this grind and love the process and love this. And I do, I align with what he's talking about because he is saying, if you're doing this for the money, if you're doing this for the fame, if you're doing it for that moment, then you're going to fail. You just are because you're not going to want everything it takes to get there. And then when you do get there, you're going to be so disappointed that it is not what you thought it was. Because what you're chasing, if you're just chasing the end goal, then it's not going to meet what you thought it was. There are exceptions to every rule. There might be somebody out there that says, well, Dylan, it's not true. I played X football stadium and it was the greatest thing in my life. Great. It was. I'm sure it was. But did you enjoy what it took for you to get there? Most of those people are going to say, oh, yeah, I look back on my van days and those are some of my best memories
Mm.
because they enjoyed the process and the grind. That's what people mean when they say enjoy the process. You have to be in love with late night long drives. I used to love when I was tour managing Flatland when we would have a super long drive because I made it a game for me. Every mile was another accomplishment. Every thing that I got to see. I mean, I personally wanted to drive because then said I'm front and center for this video, like essentially that I'm watching of the United States, and I got to see all of it. I got to drive East Coast to West Coast, South to North. I mean, we're talking the very tip of Texas, right down there, and I think Monahans were down there, and all the way up to Seattle and in the Northwest, down to San Diego, every corner up to Maine, New York City, down to Miami, and everything in between. I drove it and was like, this is it, man. I was in it, you know? We made it's so funny. We were coming back from Seattle. At the time, a lot of the guys in Flatland were still in college. They were going to Texas Tech and finishing up. We're at the back end of a 2.5 week long run, and all these guys are ready to be home, including myself. We were all just like, we can split this up into 3 days or we can make it happen. Disclaimer, I don't advise anyone do this. We drove 36 hours straight, 36 hours straight. And I think I let Jake drive for a couple hours. I was going. I was just like, this is it. This is what was driving me was that feat of like, I'm going to do it. You know, we're going to get home. And honestly, it was super beneficial because we got home 2 days before we would have otherwise. And everyone needed that break. Everyone needed that time to just take a breath and not move. Whereas we would have honestly been more tired stopping 2 more times and 2 more days and spending time away from family and wives and all that. So, point is, enjoy the grind.
I love it. You're a very self-driven individual also, which really helps. I always think to myself, man, imagine how differently the world would look if people could choose what they were passionate about or interested in, or choose whether or not they were driven and motivated. What do you think drives and motivates you to do things like, oh, I'm going to crush this 36-hour drive, or, oh, I'm going to be dedicated and dive in the trenches with the band and make sure that they come up, even though none of us are making money right now, just being in the thick of it and driving that thing forward? Where do you think that comes from?
Gosh, that's a really good question. Well, first off, I'm not always incredibly self-driven. They're just like I'm sure everybody, you know, you can fall into the minor ruts of lacking the mojo, if you will. I get really bored when I sit still. I don't know if it's just my mind is always racing, or I like to. Gosh, that's such a good question. Well, I think one of my biggest things that I've been working on personally is not seeking that approval or being like a people pleaser, because I do think early on when I was younger, that might have been one of the driving factors, you know, wanting to getting joy out of other people's joy. So call that what you will, but it's always, I have a very servant mind and attitude. If I can serve you in any way and help you, then it makes me happy because I'm like, hey, how can I help you? If I can help you, then great. I'm doing my job as an individual in your life. I'm a firm believer in that it should be a mutually beneficial, relationship, whether it's a friend or a spouse or even if it's a sibling, right? Am I helping my siblings out? Um, and then yeah, probably just the game. I'm competitive. I love games. Like this. If we're out, which we don't do that much anymore, but if we're out at a bar, I'm gonna find the game. Where is it? Is there cornhole in the corner? Is there darts? What are we doing? I'm not just gonna sit still. And so I see a lot of these things in my mind. I made it all just a game. Can I get us there before we need to get there to the next show? When the guys get off stage, can I clean that bus so much and make it so tidy that they've never seen a cleaner bus in their lives? I don't know. Everything was just like another, let's see what I can get done here. And then just making sure, again, servant attitude mixed with that, you know, knocking things off a list might have been what drove me. I don't know. It's such a good question, kid. Not sure. You're making me think about myself.
No, that's great. I've read studies about the strong correlations between those who are highly successful and those who view life as either a game or a puzzle or something that translates the challenges in life to interesting things to solve. Like they have a positive connotation towards the hurdles in life. That when you're solving a puzzle or you're trying to figure out a game, you're not annoyed at the barriers. Like those barriers are the point of the game. The whole point is to overcome these challenges and these hurdles. And when you view it as a positive hurdle to overcome, like, oh, solving this hurdle is what makes the game interesting, it shifts everything for you. There are also a lot of really interesting studies around how your brain thinks more creatively and laterally and is more adapt to solving problems when it does have a relaxed feeling as well as a positive sense about solving that challenge. So that totally makes sense. You're also a very positive person, probably one of the most realistically positive people I've ever met. Not just positive, like everything will always work out and plugging your ears and covering your eyes to bad things, but actually noticing and identifying the benefit in the challenge that you're overcoming, which I really appreciate. There's a super good book from Ryan Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the whole premise of the book is when you are faced with a challenge in life, that obstacle that's in your way is the way to succeed. It is not just a thing in your path. It is a catapult that will launch you further ahead than if it was not there at all.
Yeah,
But you've
absolutely. Well, it's like we talked on the the first section of this podcast about my childhood. I think some of it inadvertently was naturally instilled in me. Like my environment matched with my DNA and just kind of made that perfect recipe. And then God leading me through these doors and these opportunities to where I am now. I firmly do believe that it is all God ordained, but you still got to go and act on it and you got to figure it out. We talked about this the other night. You have an opportunity to react in whatever way you want. And so to me, I'm a very solution oriented individual. If there's a problem, let's not focus on the problem, or what it's going to make me look like or whatever. Let just remove your own ego, right? It's another good book. Ego is the enemy, right? Is like remove your ego and just solve the problem. And especially in management, for anybody who wants to get into management, you cannot have an ego in this business. Everybody needs a little bit of one. And that book will help you explain what that ego will drive you forward. But you just got to remove it and say, what's the problem and what's the solution? And let's just solve the problem. And it goes back to that, those long drives of I have a problem and it's a lot of miles in front of me. So how am I going to solve it the best? And what's the best route to take and It's the puzzle. So, yeah, I think that's good. And then communicating with people that's the other key to life. I mean, too often we worry about ourselves and you look internally and you really just need to have that mindset of how can I help as many people as possible? Because when you help people, it helps you in turn. You don't do it to get anything back from people, but you got to understand that you're going to interact with other people in this world. And if you focus on that person's flaws or what they're doing wrong or why did they get away with this, or none of that matters. It does not matter. Stop worrying about that other person's life. Stop worrying about that and just help them. You see them going through something, help them. Because when you help people and that person gets back up and they move forward and learn from it, it makes the world you live in a better place. Let's all do it together.
Rising tides raise all ships.
Yeah.
100%. All right. So let's say, band manager, you're starting out. You find an artist that's great. You approach him. You say, hey, I'm getting into this space. You're getting into this space. Let's work together. This is why I think we'll win. They say, okay, so now you have an artist. What do you do to actually bring them attention and grow them?
Well, the first step is just nailing down the basics, I believe. Do they, again, starting with those, do they have good songs? Do they have something to say? Do they have talent? Yes. All right. We've checked all those boxes. Get all of the foundation built before you start to take too many steps. Build the foundation. Make sure that it's firm and stable, because again, once this stuff takes off, it's really, really hard to go backwards and put things in place underneath of it. If you get too much of the house built and you don't have a sturdy foundation, it's a lot harder to go in there and put those bricks in. So I start off with the team and the perception. Okay. So if you want to build an artist, they have to be perceived as a professional artist, right? For the most part. Exceptions to every rule. And that's the other discipline. There is no blueprint to the music industry. I don't care what anyone says. It's a people business. So, there's a guy, Oliver Anthony, that's just blown up. Again, he's not an overnight sensation. The guy's been probably doing this for years and writing songs. I don't know his story, but I would assume that he's written more than one song, right? And yet he is probably trying to build a foundation underneath of him right now. And there are probably challenges to that versus going the other route. So again, my only point in saying that is there are exceptions to every rule. But if I'm taking on an artist, I'm going to say, all right, what do you have? You're starting to see a little bit of success. You're catching some traction. Do you have a website? No, you don't. Is the website going to be the driving factor and force of that artist's career? No, it's not. But if they don't have one, then that's a problem. So let's get one, and gosh, the list goes on and on about building the foundation. Do you have a bands in town to promote your shows? How's your social media? Are you on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever the next X, Y, and Z social platform is going to be? Utilize that. If you're not posting, if you're not telling your story, that is free marketing that people are on every single day, 6 hours a day. People are just scrolling. And if you're not a part of their scroll, then why are they going to pay attention to you? You're not just going to end up on their doorstep. So start there, social media, website, cleaning up your tour. Do you have a tour? Are you going to go on tour? Do you have merchandise for when you do go on tour? Do you have songs? There's so many foundational aspects to, before we worry about any of that stuff, let's start with the music. You have 3 songs that are good. Okay. You want to put them out. How much money do you have? Do you have a budget to record the songs? If you don't, then you need to save up this much money. And then again, I can help place people and say, all right, here's a producer, or here's an engineer that I know. Here's a studio. Here's what it's going to cost. Do you have that money? No, I don't. Okay. Let's save up that money and get that money, and then you go in and record your songs. Okay, cool. Now I have the songs. I've got the masters. How do I put it out? All right. Well, there are a ton of free resources that you can use: CD Baby, TuneCore, et cetera, et cetera. Let's put the song out. See if people like it. Let's distribute it. And then again, that's where you focus on all those other areas and you build it. Now we go past all these foundational aspects of an artist's career. You start getting into the strategy. It's different with every single artist. What is the story they're trying to tell? Without knowing that, we don't know who the audience is or who we're trying to target. There are a ton of different ways that you can start pitching and doing that. Because starting over, neither of us have money, so we need to save the money. What are we going to do? Let's hone our craft. I would take the artist and say, let me go and get you as many gigs as I can around town. There are a ton of people who go and play on Broadway. It's a good place to cut your teeth. I personally wouldn't advise an artist-centric person. If you're a guitar player, drummer, bass player, fiddle player, if you're just an instrumentalist, you can go play on Broadway and make great tips and really cut your teeth and learn how to perform to a crowd. If you're an artist, there are other ways that you can do it. You could try and, again, go out and network and make friends in the industry, write songs, go see who else is doing what you want to do, and create a nice little community of people here in town. Start making money, get yourself a job. All right, in 4 months, we're going to have, $5,000 to record these 3 songs, or 10 grand, whatever your goal is. Go and grab that, record the music. Then I would start, me as the manager, I would also be at all the shows now that I have my artist, and I would be trying to meet other artist teams and getting connected with other managers in town and grabbing coffees and learning from people and figuring out, how do I get my foot in the door? Just like this young man who's interning here. Now he has access to all of the managers at Make, Wake, and Deep Roots. So he gets to ask all the questions. Just asked me earlier today if I would go grab breakfast with him. Yep, no problem. And then he's going to get a one-on-one with me to pick my brain about, how did you make it? What do you do? What would you do here? How would I do this? How do I take that next step here? So you just got to start creating those opportunities. And then I would figure out if there was anybody that I could grab coffee with that's in the booking world. So once you make genuine friends, if you don't have anything to offer, then find a way that you can help people, because that's going to be the best way for you to get your foot in the door. How can I help you? All right, I've got a manager friend. Hey, do you have any young booking agents that might want to grab coffee with me? All right, I'm going to go get coffee with somebody from William Morris. And then I'm going to learn, what do you guys do? And, are you in the mail room? Are you at a desk? Like, what are you doing over there? Do you think, is there any way that I can meet with anybody else at your company? And you just start building the network, right? And learning who are the playmakers in town. Do your research. The internet's your friend today. There are so many websites you could go and Google your favorite artist and figure out pretty quickly who their manager is. And then you just hit up their office. Hey, I just want to grab lunch. I want to grab it. Can I get 10 minutes with you? 10 minutes to ask, and then have your questions ready. Okay, so I have a young artist and I'm just trying to figure out what the next steps might be and start connecting dots. What are all the different managers and booking agents saying? What's the common thread? What's the next step? And then you hopefully will eventually, over time, make enough connections and get your artist. If your artist is good enough and the songs are good enough, then they will get attention from other people in town. Hey, I've now finally sat down with 5 to 10 different booking agencies and agents and people, and I've shown them my artist, and it doesn't have to be a sales pitch every time, but just be honest with people. This is exactly what I'm trying to do. I have an artist. We have 3 songs. We think they're fantastic. If you know of any opportunities that he could open, or if you just take a minute and live with this song and just give me your opinion. Don't ask him for anything. Hey, will you sign my artist? No, just say, if you wouldn't mind, and if you have any time on your way home from work, here are my artist's 3 songs. Would you mind taking a quick listen? If you love it, great. If you don't, great. Just let me know. That's it. And then you start, and then the song will always speak for itself. If the song's good, people will start to be drawn to it. If the song's not good, then you write more songs, right? You just keep going. And then you just recycle that process of continuing to meet people and learn. And I mean, I have 7 artists now, and I learn something new every single day, and I'm hungry to continue to learn. I'm 34. I'm young. I'm not trying to be the best and do this and have, I don't care about any of that stuff right now. What I care about is my artist first. How am I helping their career? And part of that is me learning as much as I can from all the people who have done this far longer than I have. So I get in the rooms with them. Cappy, being my partner on all these artists is huge because I get to learn from him and I get to call him when something comes up. I'm like, hey Cap, what do you think we should do here? What would you do here? Or have you ran into this in the past? Oftentimes he's like, yeah. Or every so often there's nope, haven't run into that yet. Even Cappy, who's Luke Combs' manager, who's probably run into the vast majority of every situation you can run into, still is running into new scenarios. So don't be discouraged. Meet people, have something to offer, work your tail off, and be patient.
What would you say is the biggest lever when it comes to an artist's growth? Is it playing shows to grow an audience? Is it posting on social media regularly? How do you think about those levers, and which do you think are the most important to pull?
I think there are a lot of important levers. The obvious, I keep going back to this, the song, the song, the song. If the song is good, eventually it will gain traction. You've got to have a good song. You've got to be professional, present yourself professionally. Um, Social media is a huge tool right now. Huge tool. If you're not using it every single day, you've got to use it as an artist. You've got to get out there because it just has become the standard. You've got to at least meet the standard. You know what I mean? It's the new standard. So social media is huge, and I'm not talking about a TikTok viral moment. I'm just talking about a good, healthy use of a free marketing tool. You got to go out and play. You will not make it anywhere in this industry if you're not a good performer, right? That is like the backbone of it all, and you've got to hone in on that craft. And if you don't have any direction, again, surround yourself with people who are better than you. Go out to shows and learn from those people and talk to them and see and observe. Go to a show and watch someone that is a pro. How did they move? How did they walk? When did they turn? Did they have the mic in their hand? Did they put the guitar on their back? Learn the nuances of of the industry. I mean, these are all various levers. I know there's no like, man, this is the key. If you do this, you'll make it. It's just a body of work of good songs, good performance, good vocals. Make sure, if you want to be a professional football player, you better be in the gym every single day. You better be getting your CO2 max up because you're going to be running up and down that field every day. You can't just get up off your couch and go out and play, you know? So it's the same thing as an artist. And a lot of artists don't know they've got to be in vocal lessons training. People think, you got to get vocal lessons. We got to stop calling it vocal lessons and say vocal training because that's what it is. You've got to train, do all that. Eventually, it's the process that will get you there, right? Social media, touring, a good song, and then a good bass. Take care of the foundation. For instance, if you come to me and say, Dylan, I want you to manage me, I'm going to ask you all these questions and I'm going to figure out how far along are you? Because again, it's not that you're not worth my time. It's I may not be worth your time right now because there are so many things you got to clean up before I'm even relevant in your life. You know, if you've played one show in your whole life and you don't know how to sing and you've only written 2 songs, you got a lot of work to do before I'm even going to matter. You know what I mean? So have that foundation built, then go and find the people to partner with when the time is right. And you'll know the time is right because it'll just start to feel right. It won't be like you're just constantly dragging through the mud and trying for something that's eventually the mud will get shallower and shallower, and then you'll be on dry land and you'll look around and see other people running next to you right? You're not reaching and scratching for them, which is a part of the process for sure. But you'll look beside you. Oh, hey, you're running the same race as me. You want to be on my team? Yeah, cool. All right. And then you're just going, right? Then you'll pick up some steam and you'll look beside you, and then another person will be there, and you're like, oh, you're a booking agent? We're running the same race. Hey, let's go. You know what I mean? It'll just start to kind of roll.
Is there, and if there is, who is the gatekeeper for this process? If you just had a specific person in a specific role and you had their full buy-in, that would just open up all the doors. Is there a person like that, a role like that, and who would that role be?
I mean, the fans are the gatekeepers. So the fans. Um, Talk to people and let them know who you are. They are the true gatekeepers. If you're talking in the industry, and I think maybe a better way or a better question in this scenario might be, who is the first person that you want on your team that's going to help propel you forward? I think good advisement, so a good manager, but you don't want to go too early, right? You need to make sure that you know who these people are and trust them. A good attorney, if you can go and get an attorney, um, that's a good, because they know everybody. They know the labels, they know the publishers, they know the managers. They're the middleman between every big decision that happens in town. So the attorneys are a good person to know, and always have, well, okay, again, exception to every rule. Most of the time have your best interest at heart. They really, really, truly are like, they they don't get anything out of a bad deal, right? They want to make sure that most attorneys in town are good people. So you get one of them on board who will say, oh, I think you're ready for management. Let me connect you with the make wake managers and the team over there. Or vice versa. You get a good manager who noticed you at a show and noticed you've got a decent little following going, and the gatekeepers, the fans, are resonating with your song, and they're being drawn to you. Then you get a good manager who can say, okay, here's what we need to do. Foundation, booking agent. Do you want a publishing deal? Do you not want a publishing deal? Is that part of your goal? You don't have to have one, right? Are you even ready for a booking agent? Are we ready to put you out on the road and have people represent you? Um, it's such a loaded topic. I tell everybody, young artists, before you get a booking agent, sell 400 tickets in your hometown. Don't even go and talk to anybody else until you can sell 400 tickets in your hometown. Once you can do that, you've got a good start. And anybody who's a really good, talented musician who's put their time and their work in, if you've got the right songs and you've got it, you should be able to sell 400 tickets in your hometown. Where are you from? I don't care where you're from. Maybe you're from a town of 400 people. My my point is, okay, you're from like me. I was from a town of 2,000 people. I'm not trying to sell 400 tickets in Leslie, Michigan. I'm trying to sell it in the next biggest town, Lansing. That's my hometown for sake of what I'm saying. Could I sell 400 tickets in my hometown? That's goal number one. Okay, I accomplished that goal. I've got a really good local fan base. Now let me go and see if I can sell 400 tickets in Grand Rapids and in Detroit and in Flint and go up to Northern Michigan. Now I've got Michigan. Okay, well, let's see if I can get my music out to the people in Indianapolis and Cleveland and Chicago. All right, now I'm doing about 100 tickets on all these small markets, 70 to 100 tickets, and I can sell out my hometown venue 400 to 600 people. You bring those numbers to somebody in the industry, they're going to look at you and they're going to say, there's something behind this. Okay, we know that they have a decent following in their hometown, in their home region. There's some promise here. But again, all this stuff is obtainable by an artist by themselves. Grab some buddies. If you're young, if you're in your early 20s, grab some buddies and say, hey guys, I'm really going to try this. You guys want to you want to jump on this ride with me and sell some merch? Hey, you want to go to Indianapolis this weekend and just see how many people we can get out at our show? Like, let's see. This could be fun. Do you have and Not everybody has that. Not everybody has that community. So I don't just want to speak to them because somebody may say, I just, all my friends are off at college or all this is happening. Okay. That's when you go back to what I just said. Who's selling out that venue in your hometown? Who is it? Because somebody's doing it. Whether they're from Nashville or they're from your hometown, somebody is selling out that venue in your hometown. Go meet them. Figure out who they are, who's their team, because they may give you some other ideas. And there's got to be other people at that show that you talk to. Hey, how'd you hear about so and so? Oh, I watched him on Instagram. Oh, cool. Yeah, that's where I found him. Awesome. Are you just a fan, or are you interested in the industry? No, I mean, it's my goal. I want to be in the industry. Haha. Hey, I'm an artist. You want to be in the industry. Will you run my merch? You know what I mean? You never know, but you're not going to know unless you're just out there doing it and in it and trying. So
You think of the people first in terms of, oh, how do you do ABC? You always start with, you go find the person that's doing ABC. I'm a firm believer in being highly selective with what advice you get and the types of people that you work with and so on. And the best litmus test that I have for whether or not to accept advice from someone is whether or not they've done the thing that you're trying to do. So I always use the example of, if you want to go to the Olympics, you hang out with Olympians, you ask the Olympians what they do. You don't ask your Uncle Joe, who watches the Olympics every 4 years, how to get there. You go find the Olympians. You find the people who understand the process from A to Z and can guide you through that process, while hopefully you're delivering value to them so that they're incentivized to guide you through that process.
absolutely. No, you're 100% right. You've got to, that's what I kept saying about surround yourself with people who are better than you, and removing your ego, removing your pride. If you want to make it, you got to think about the 10-year process and not the 2-month process. You may not be the best performer, singer, manager. You may not know everything. When I took over management for Flatland, I straight up told them, I don't know everything I need to know, and I don't know everyone that I need to know right now. But I promise you, I will meet all of those people and I will learn all those things. And you will never find anyone who's going to outwork me for you guys. You will not find it. And I feel like, I mean, you could probably ask all of them now. I feel like I've lived up to that because I'm continuing to help them advance their career, and I'm doing the best that I absolutely best that I can, right? And I'm not perfect, and I'm still learning, and there's still things that our team can do better, and that's what we work towards. Everyone on our team is constantly, how can we be better? How can we find more of those keys to unlock? What is something that we can do that's a little bit unique? And we're always trying to do those things, but um, oftentimes I find it all boils down to the basics. Sometimes people can overthink things.
Hmm.
They can overthink it. And when you overthink art, it does not come out right. Sometimes you've just got to trust your heart, trust your gut, and do it. I was just talking to one of my artists the other day. They were asking me, what should I do? What should I do here? This, that, and the other. I'm getting so many outside opinions. And I said, what does your heart say? Well, my heart says that I think I should do this, do that. Well, yeah, but like, what about if it's perceived? I said, stop worrying about everything else and be authentically you. Because if you're not you and you're trying to manufacture something that you think people want to hear, then you're just producing what everybody else has been producing. What do you want to do? Now, at the end of the day, you have to accept some people will like it, some people won't. You're never going to find a piece of art or a mindset or a person that everybody's just 100% on board with. It does not exist. So don't worry about it and be you. People will either gravitate toward it or they won't. But at least at the end of the day, I was me. I said what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, and I was uniquely me. And I think if people just leaned in on that rather than being so worried about, well, is this label going to like what I do here? Or is this manager going to like this? Or what if I, as long as you're being good to other people and respecting people, and you're not out trying to hurt them. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying it's a free for all. You've got to be mindful about other people's, you know, feelings. But as long just be you, be authentically you. That's what you got to do. You'll go so far, so fast by just being you.
Yeah. And starting off with that authenticity from the beginning so that the base that you build is part of your authenticity. That's something that I've been pushing really hard with this podcast as well. You and I spoke about it the other day, which is I only want to talk to people who I want to talk to. I was reached out to by somebody who wanted to be on the podcast, but due to a handful of things, I wasn't interested in that conversation, and it didn't make sense. And it made sense from a business perspective, right? There's some leverage that would have come from speaking to this person where it could have actually catalyzed some growth, but I knew that it wouldn't be authentic. And so I ended up having to turn them down because I want every single conversation that I have on this podcast to be a conversation that I genuinely want to have, not a conversation that I think it's going to get the best ratings or the fans are going to be the most interested in it, whatever it is. It's like, no, this moment right here is a conversation between you and me that I am having because I genuinely want to have this conversation with you. I'm interested in you and what you have to say and your thoughts and all sorts of things. There are some moments where I was thinking twice about it, thinking like, oh man, but strategically it'd be smart to have them. And, you know, maybe it wasn't the best move. Maybe other people would have thought differently, but I truly believe that if I stay authentic and I have these incredible conversations with people I'm highly interested in, then that's where the magic happens. That's the magical essence that I'm trying to capture. And even if the audience never grows very big, even if it stays small, but it's people who are genuinely interested in these sparks of magic that I create with the thing that I'm genuinely interested in, then that's what I'm going for. That's what I deem successful, not how many listeners or downloads do I get, not like how big can we make this, am I top 1% of business podcasts, none of those things. It's just the process of creating something magical, creating a spark that other people notice and are drawn to, and they're drawn to the same thing that I'm drawn to, that I'm creating.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going for.
Man, I love that. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this before. I mean, it's incredibly inspiring to see you starting this, the journey that you're on. And this is a really good thing. You know, it's an honor for me to be on here. I know we're really good friends and all, but I'm like, and I am not incredible. So you're going to continue your hunt for that after this. And the hunt continues. I have not found it yet. Like, you know, but no, this is just such a cool idea and concept, and it is authentically who you are. I mean, you are doing exactly what I'm talking about. You are one of the more intentional humans I've ever met. You're authentic. I mean, the first time we ever met, you looked deep into my soul, right into my eyes. It made me, you've helped me grow in that because I was like, why is this guy staring a hole through me right now? But you were intentional. You're like, I want you to know that I'm listening to you. And I'm like, oh, I get it, brother. Hold on. Hang tight. You can now see what I can see. And but I loved that. And I've learned so much from you about that eye contact because there was one thing I was not doubting is that you were hearing what I was saying, you know, and that's good. It was a good thing.
I appreciate that. And I like that feedback. That's fun. All right. At the end, rapid fire questions. What is a book that everybody who's trying to get into this space must read that was impactful to you?
Everything you need to know about the music industry. I think they're on the 10th edition right now. Read that. Artist, industry, business professional, whatever you are, read that. And Trillion Dollar Coach. Trillion Dollar Coach will help anybody with anything that you're trying to do. It's one of the best books ever.
Such a good book.
I will literally go back to that book when I come to a crossing the road and I'm not sure what the answer is. I've got just a few references, right? I go to the Bible, I go to Trillion Dollar Coach. No joke. It helps me every single time.
Dude, when I read that book, I was thinking of you the entire time. And was like, dude, this is a different version of Dill. This is a version of Dill that ended up in tech.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he's Bill Campbell. He was one of the best in knowing how to communicate with people and get the best out of them. Everyone should go read the book. I don't care what you're doing in life, go read the book. It'll unlock some things for you.
Nice. All right. And when you hear the word incredible, what do you think of?
Unbelievable. Incredible is something that I feel like it's hard to believe that it happened or that someone could do that. But that's why I think musicians, artists who stick it out are all incredible to me. I don't care what level you make it to. I know how hard it is. And so for me and just specifically in my industry, it's incredible. It's incredible to watch my artists do what they do because it is nearly unbelievable that people can, give as much as they give and take in as much as they do because you can just be starting out. A lot of people in your hometown are going to be criticizing what you're doing. I mean, it starts from day one. And then you get bigger and bigger. The amount of people that just attack you grows as you grow. So it's incredible, not just for the obvious reasons of I can't believe that person can do what not a lot of people can do, but it's incredible that they can withstand the things that they have to go through.
Is there anybody that you think of when you hear the word incredible?
My mom. Yeah. And then, I mean,
sweet Lana. Lana is
sweet Lana.
Also
It's
one
incredible.
of the most fun humans I have ever hung out with.
Yes.
She makes me laugh as much as you do.
Probably a lot more. She's funny. I think of her. I really do think all my friends are incredible. I'm so fortunate and blessed, and I'm not just saying this. It's like getting to watch what you do and be a part of it. That's an incredible journey. Eventually, you're going to have to do a podcast where you tell your story because it is incredible. it's pretty awesome. I think Kathy's incredible. Luke Combs obviously is incredible. The guys in Flatland. You had Jason on. It's an incredible story. That is incredible. His story. Mm-hmm. So there's a ton of people. I could go down the list of people that I think are incredible.
Awesome. Well, Dill, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as always. I look forward to the 1,000,001 conversations that we will still have. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you so much.